Good evening and welcome back to Poetry Corner. I've got a slightly different poem for you tonight, one that's not so obviously Christian as many of the poems we've looked at, but which I think has some lessons for all of us and especially for Christians. It's another poem by Rudyard Kipling. I know I've done a couple of his poems before, but I do like his style and I think it's more accessible than many poets out there. And it's a rather light-hearted, imaginative poem with a serious message. So, as usual, we're going to hear the poem and then I'm going to offer some thoughts and reflections on it. Let's hear Rudyard Kipling's poem, The Story of Ung. Once, on a glittering ice field, ages and ages ago, Ung, a maker of pictures, fashioned an image of snow. Fashioned the form of a tribesman, gaily he whistled and sung, working the snow with his fingers. Read ye the story of Ung. Pleased was his tribe with that image, came in their hundreds to scan, handled it, smelt it, and grunted, Verily, this is a man. Thus do we carry our lances. Thus is a war belt slung. Lo, it is even as we are. Glory and honour to Ung. Later he pictured an aurochs. Later he pictured a bear. Pictured a saber-toothed tiger dragging a man to his lair. Pictured the mountainous mammoth, hairy, abhorrent, alone. Out of the love that he bore them, scriving them clearly on bone. Swift came the tribe to behold them, peering and pushing and still. Men of the berg-battered beaches, men of the boulder-hatched hill, hunters and trappers and fishers, presently whispering low, Yea, they are like, and it may be, but how does the picture man know? Ung, has he slept with the aurochs? Has he watched where the mastodon roam, spoke on the ice with the bowhead? Has he followed the saber-tooth home? Nay, these are toys of his fancy. If he has cheated us so, how is the truth in his image, the man he fashioned of snow? Wroth was that maker of pictures. Hotly he answered the call. Hunters and trappers and fishers, children and fools are you all. Look at the beasts when you hunt them. Swift from the tumult he broke and ran to the cave of his father and told him the shame that they spoke. And the father of Ung gave answer, that was old and wise in his craft. Maker of pictures aforetime, he leaned on his lance and he laughed. If they could see as thou seest, they would do what thou hast done. And each one would make him a picture, and what would become of my son? There would be no pelts of the reindeer flung down at thy cave for a gift. No doyle of the oily timber that comes on the Baltic drift. No store of well-drilled needles, nor ouches of amber pale. No new-cut tongue of the bison, or meat of the stranded whale. Thou hast not toiled at the fishing when the sodden trammels freeze, nor worked the warboats outwards through the rush of the rock-staked seas, yet they bring thee fish and plunder, full meal and an easy bed, and all for the sake of thy pictures. And Ung hung down his head. Thou hast not stood to the aurochs when the red snow reeks of the fight. Men have no time at the howling to count his curls aright. And the heart of the hairy mammoth thou say'st they do not see, but they save it whole from the beaches and broil the best for thee. And now do they press to thy pictures with an open mouth and eye, and a little gift in the doorway, and the praise no gift can buy. But sure they have doubted thy pictures, and that is a grievous stain. Son, that can see so clearly, return them their gifts again. And Ung looked down at his deerskins, at their broad shell-tasseled bands, and Ung drew downward his mitten and looked at his naked hands. And he gloved himself and departed, and he heard his father behind, Son, that can see so clearly, be glad thy tribe are blind. Once, on a glittering ice field, By the caves of the lost Dordogne, Ung, a maker of pictures, fell to his scribing on bone, even to mammoth editions. Gaily he whistled and sung, blessing his tribe for their blindness. Heed ye the story of Ung. I hope you enjoyed that colourful little poem. I'm rather fond of it. What's it saying? Well, I think it says two things in the two halves of the story. The first half of the story describes how Ung's tribe, that really liked his image of a tribesman, then came and looked at the other pictures he made and didn't think they were accurate, and so questioned all his work. And actually, that's a mistake, an error, that it's very easy to make. To say, this person has got it wrong once, therefore nothing they did can be any good. Or, I'm not convinced about this thing that somebody said, so I'm not going to listen to them about anything. That's a common fallacy. And we need to be careful not to be quick to jump to judgment. I think our brains like to organize the world into completely good and trustworthy and completely bad and untrustworthy. And actually, most things are somewhere in between. There is God who is completely trustworthy, there is the devil who is completely untrustworthy, but humans are in between. There is white and there is black, but we're a mixture of them. We're shades of grey. And actually, there's no human who gets it right all the time. There's no human who gets it wrong all the time. That means really, there's nobody you can get away with not listening to, and there's nobody you can get away with listening uncritically to. Don't trust everything anyone says, but listen to everything everyone says. Now, of course, in the poem, Ung is actually has a much better eye to see the animals than the rest of his tribe, and so his pictures of them are accurate. His tribe have missed out because they've been so focused on what they're doing, actually hunting the animals, that they've never stopped to look at the animals themselves. Again, easy mistake to make. We sometimes call it not being able to see the wood for the trees. But sometimes we can be so busy doing something, we're not really aware of what it is we're doing. That's particularly the case, I think, in the church, where we can be so set on what we think we're supposed to be doing as church. We don't take time to be church. We can be so set on what can we do to help our community, which is a great thing to be set on. But we don't stop and think about what our community really needs. The world needs doers, but it also needs dreamers and thinkers. And sometimes they will see things more clearly than the doers, just as sometimes they will be out of touch and need the doers to actually correct them with practical experience. Don't ignore the dreamers, and don't trust them implicitly. But if that's the first half of the story of the poem, the second half is about the father's words to Ung, and this is the real punch of the poem. Ung is angry that his tribe haven't seen the animals rightly and so are doubting and questioning him. And his father says to them, if they could see as thou seest, they would do what thou hast done, and each one would make him a picture, and what would become of my son? We're liable to be frustrated that other people aren't like us, that they can't do what we do and see what we see. But if they did, what place would there be for us? God in his wisdom has made each of us unique. The Bible is very clear that he's given to each person gifts. Paul says in Corinthians, to each one, the gifts of the Spirit is given for the common good. Every Christian has a gift that is theirs and that the rest of the church needs. If we all had the same gift, then that would be a rather depressing state of affairs and not a very useful one, because the world needs diversity, the church needs diversity. You're probably familiar with Paul's famous image of this as being like the human body. If the whole body was made up of one organ, it wouldn't work. The heart is an essential organ, but if the whole body was a heart, the heart wouldn't have any blood to beat or any oxygen or any food. The eye is an essential organ, If the whole body was an eye, it wouldn't be able to go anywhere, and indeed it would die without a heart. In the same way, the church needs people to be different. It needs some people to be doers and some to be thinkers. It needs people who have a gift for music and people who have a gift for technology. It needs people who are good at different things and like different things and enjoy different things. So when you find people don't get your area of expertise, rejoice, because it means you have something to give. And it is a great privilege to be able to give and to help people. When you find people don't understand the things that are important to you, try not to be frustrated. It may be that your ability to recognize them is part of your gift and part of what you have to bring. When other people aren't like you, be glad. It would be a very boring world if they all were. The father says to his son, be glad the tribe are blind. Of course, in a sense, they're not blind. The son, the image maker, is dependent upon them to bring him food and deerskins and all the rest of it. And in the same way, we're all dependent on each other. We all need what others can bring. So whatever it is that other people don't get and you do, be glad that we are different and serve others with what you can get, what you can understand, what you can do. Don't become frustrated that they can't, and don't be envious of them for what they can do and you can't. I promise you there will be things that you're good at and they're bad at. To each one, the gift of the Spirit is given for the common good. To each of us are given things that we are good at, that we are strong at, that we get, that we care about, that motivate and move us. And to everybody else is given a slightly different set of skills and passions and dreams and strengths and abilities. If your toolbox has nothing in it but hammers, you'll be in trouble when you need a screw putting in. A diverse toolbox is much more useful than the most complete set of hammers imaginable. The church, similarly, is not just a box of hammers, it's a toolbox. It's different, it's diverse. So if you're a screwdriver, don't be frustrated that the people who are hammers can't drive screws as well. Be glad and use what you're good at. I think that's the message of this poem of Kipling's. I think it's the message of a lot of scripture. Whatever is unique to you, use it. Don't be frustrated that others don't have it. Don't be frustrated that your gift isn't the same as other people's. But whatever has been given to you, take it and use it for the common good. Amen.